Welcome to Let's Dig Deeper, a podcast devoted to exploring life through the lens of shadow work. I'm your host, Steph Flores, and together we'll journey beneath the surface into the parts of ourselves we often avoid, and the truths that shape how we lead, live, and connect. This is a space for raw reflection, radical honesty, and the kind of conversations that invite transformation. So take a breath, get present, and let's dig deeper. Before we dive in, I want you to do something that we rarely give ourselves permission to do. Pause. Take a deep breath, just one, and ask yourself quietly and honestly, how are you doing? Really though, how are you? Not the version you tell your coworkers or your friends, right, when they check in. Not the version that posts a highlight reel, but you, the one behind the smile, beneath the distractions, beneath the I've got this attitude. How's your heart? What's been heavy that you haven't named yet? What's that thing that's trying to get your attention right now that you keep brushing aside? Because, let's be honest, right? Life is too full. That's what today's conversation is about. The inner dialogue we avoid. It's about the truth that we bury. I want to talk about the power of checking in with yourself before the breakdown happens and before the burnout takes place and before life forces you to. We've all gotten real good at answering that question by saying, I'm fine. How many times have you said it this week alone? How many times have you said it today, right? I'm fine is the emotional shortcut we've all learned to take. It's quick and it's easy and it closes the conversation. And it hides your truth, right? It keeps things neat and controlled, but most of the time, it's not real. I'm fine is how you protect yourself. The problem is when you use it too often, it becomes muscle memory. And so you say it even when you don't mean it. And every time we say, I'm fine, instead of naming what's true, we send a message to ourselves that says, how I feel doesn't matter right now. And when you hear that enough, even from your own inner voice, you start to believe it. You disconnect. And when you disconnect, you don't disconnect from others because you're still hanging out with your friends and you're still seeing your family and you're still showing up for work and you're still interacting with your coworkers. So you don't disconnect from others, but you do disconnect from yourself. You forget what it feels like to tell the truth. The emotional distance you feel, that's not you being dramatic or weak. It's what happens when you've been moving through life without checking in. You've been showing up for everything and everyone except yourself. You've been pouring out without pausing, pushing forward without processing, and coping instead of connecting. And the result? You've been saying yes without asking how you feel. You start to feel distant from your own life. Like you're in the room, but not really in it. That feeling, that's your soul asking for presence. Not more productivity, not more positivity. Just a moment of truth. What would happen if you stop pretending, even for just a moment? What do you find when you pause? See, we live in a world that glorifies constant motion, right? Being busy means you're productive. Always doing means you're winning. But when you never pause, you miss the messages your mind and body are sending. You're tuned into everyone around you but yourself. You see, a pause isn't complicated. It's that breath you take before walking into a room. It's the quiet moment you give yourself before responding to that message. It's when you ask, what's really going on with me today? And it's not to fix it, but it's to witness it. You don't have to have the answers. You don't have to turn your feelings into a to-do list. The pause isn't for solving. It's for seeing, for noticing the grief that you haven't processed. It's for noticing the tension that you feel, the numbness, the joy that maybe you forgot you were even allowed to feel. Jay Shetty says you can't heal what you won't allow yourself to feel. And I remember when I paused a few years back, I remember getting up that Wednesday morning. It was after a night I didn't get much sleep. I stayed up and I was anxious and I was heavy and I was desperate. I woke up feeling something I hadn't felt since I was 17 years old. It was a familiar feeling because at 17, I felt anxious and I felt desperate and I felt alone. And at 17, I didn't know how to check in with myself. So I was carrying this weight that I had decided I no longer wanted to carry. And so because 17-year-old me didn't know how to check in with herself, I decided I would take life into my own hands and pursue a permanent decision for what was a temporary problem. And then the phone rang. And it was my mom on the other line. And the words that she spoke were, whatever you're about to do, don't do it. That was my first experience with healing. That what it was that was going on in my body, it was healing the trauma that I had experienced. That was the first time I realized what a pause was. What it was to allow yourself to feel. And so here I am, 30-something years old, sitting on the edge of her bed, experiencing what 17-year-old me experienced. But this time, I knew the importance of checking in with myself and acknowledging and giving space to my feelings. So that day, instead of making a decision that would be permanent, I called my therapist. And because I paused, I'm here today. So if pausing is so simple, why is it that we avoid it? Why do we run from silence when it's the one thing that might actually save us? It's avoidance. And avoidance is a form of protection. But over time, it becomes a barrier to your own peace. See, many of us were never taught how to sit with discomfort. We were taught to work through it, scroll past it, drown it with busyness or perfectionism, right? And when the feelings come up, we push them down. Because facing them means slowing down. And slowing down can be terrifying. You know, avoiding yourself can look like overcommitting or overgiving, overthinking. It's not always obvious. And sometimes it just looks like you being productive, right? When really, you're just keeping yourself distracted from the truth. Fear isn't always about what we'll feel. It's about what we might have to change once we finally admit it. It's about the relationship, right, that doesn't feel right anymore, or the job that drains you, the version of yourself you've forgotten. But here's the thing, right? Here's what I know. What you ignore doesn't disappear. It builds. Until one day you crash. You cry in the car. You numb out. You burn out. Not because you're weak, but because you've been carrying emotions that never got a place to land. And let me be the one to tell you that you deserve better than that. Checking in is how we stop avoiding and start reconnecting again. And checking in isn't a performance. It's not another thing to protect. It's a conversation. Start with one simple question. What's here right now? Ask it in the morning, while you brush your teeth, or while you're making coffee. Don't pressure yourself, though, to go too deep. Just be honest with yourself. Your body will tell you the truth before words do. Right? So are your shoulders tense? Are you clenching your jaw? Do you feel foggy? Do you feel irritable? Those are all check-ins. That's your body asking to be heard. Some other questions that you can use to check in are, what did I ignore today? Or what made me feel seen? Or maybe what am I pretending doesn't bother me? And these questions don't need answers right away, right? The point is to bring yourself back to yourself. The more you check in, the more natural it becomes. It stops feeling like a chore and it starts feeling like care, right? You start noticing patterns. You start recognizing when something's off before it even gets close to exploding. One thing I learned over these last few years is silence isn't empty. It's full of answers. And here's the best part. When you do this often enough, things in your life begin to shift. Listening to yourself isn't always easy, but it's worth it. When you start checking in regularly, you build trust with yourself, right? You stop second guessing your own intuition. You stop abandoning your needs to keep other people comfortable. You begin to speak up, right? Not because you're trying to prove something, but because you've finally given yourself permission to take up space. You say no without guilt. You choose rest without explanation. And you set boundaries without apologizing for them. You stop waiting for crisis to care for yourself, right? Instead of falling apart and then tending to your wounds, you build a rhythm of wholeness. And you stay connected. You stay grounded. You stay with you. And eventually, you stop performing. And you stop pretending. You just come home to yourself. And coming home to yourself will cost you your comfort zone. But it will give you back your peace. You don't need to be perfect to check in with yourself. You don't need to have it all together to take a breath and ask, how am I doing today? So here's my challenge to you. Pause. Ask yourself, right now, how am I really? And whatever the answer is, let it be. Let this be your reminder that you're not alone and that you never were. If this episode helped you reconnect even a little, I'd love to know it. Tag me at Let's Dig Deeper _ on Instagram and share one thing you're sitting with. Until next time, keep digging deeper. Keep choosing you.